In a quiet, dusty village in southeastern Nigeria, where the sun sets behind cracked mud walls and the air smelled of wood smoke, Agbonma sat outside her small crumbling house. Her unkempt grey hair framed a face etched with the struggles of 6 long decades. She pulled her tattered wrapper closer to her frail body, staring into the distance, lost in thought. Somewhere in the village, Ikenna, her only son, staggered through the market, a bottle of cheap gin in his hand. The young man, once full of promise, had become a shadow of himself. His red dreadlocks matted, his eyes permanently bloodshot, his clothes torn and stained. People whispered as he passed, some shaking their heads in pity, others in disdain. Agbonma had fought for Ikenna. She had carried him on her back as a child, worked tirelessly over a smoky firewood stove, and endured years of hardship to give him a better life. But life had not been kind. His father had died young, leaving them with nothing but debts and sorrows. Ikenna had tried, but the weight of poverty and disappointment had pushed him into the arms of alcohol. That evening, as the sky darkened, Agbonma found Ikenna lying in an alley, passed out from drinking. Her weak hands shook him awake. He blinked up, confused, reeking of gin and regret. "Ikenna, my son," her voice cracked as tears trickled down her weathered cheeks. "This is not the life I wanted for you." Ikenna sat up, avoiding her gaze. He knew she was right, but what could he do? Hope had abandoned him long ago. Days passed. Agbonma grew weak. She no longer had the strength to cook, to argue, to beg him to change. She lay on a mat inside her untidy house, her breath shallow, her body failing. Ikenna watched her, the realization sinking in. He was losing her. The woman who had fought for him all his life was slipping away, and all he had done was disappoint her. For the first time in years, Ikenna felt something heavier than drunkenness. Guilt. Would it be too late to change? Ikenna had always been a man of the bottle. Gin was his god and drunkenness was his comfort. When his mother, Agbonma, fell sick, something inside him shifted. He watched her frail body on the thin mat, her labored breathing filling the dimly lit room. "Mama, don't leave me," his voice cracked. She turned to him, her sunken eyes filled with sorrow. "My son, it is you who must wake up." Her words haunted him. That night, as he stumbled through the village, the whispers around him grew louder. The people blamed her Agbonma, the old woman with unkempt hair and decayed teeth. They said she was a witch. Desperate for help, Ikenna staggered into the largest church in the village, where Pastor Okechukwu, a fire-breathing preacher, led a powerful congregation. "Man of God, my mother is dying," he cried before the altar. "I need deliverance." The pastor placed his hand on Ikenna's head, closing his eyes as if receiving a vision. Then his voice thundered through the church. "Your mother is the cause of your suffering. She has tied your destiny with dark powers." Gasp filled the church. Some nodded in agreement. Others whispered in shock. Ikenna froze. Was this true? Had his mother been the reason for his downfall? The congregation circled him, praying fervently, shouting, "Holy Ghost fire! Holy Ghost fire! Holy Ghost fire!" As they cast out demons that Ikenna wasn't sure even existed. But deep inside, something felt wrong. That night, he couldn't sleep. His mother was weak, dying, yet the image of her weary, suffering eyes didn't look like that of an evil woman. He needed another opinion. Against everything he had been taught in church, Ikenna visited the oldest dibia in the village, Nze Okorie. The shrine was filled with ancient carvings, flickering lamps, and the smell of burning incense. The old man stared at him for a long time before speaking. Ikenna, you are not caused by your mother. Your problem did not start with her. It started long before you were born. Ikenna's heart pounded. What do you mean? The Dibia threw Kari's shell on a mat and sighed. Your forefathers, he said slowly, sold your generation to the gods. Ikenna's blood ran cold. Many years ago, in time of war and famine, his great-grandfather had sacrificed the destiny of his lineage in exchange for wealth and power. Every male descendant of his bloodline was doomed to a life of suffering, addiction, and failure. His mother, Agbonma, had known but never told him. She had tried everything to break the chain but failed. You carry the weight of the past, Ikenna. Only you can set yourself free. Ikenna's anger melted into understanding. His mother wasn't the enemy. She was a victim. Just like him, he ran back to her, falling to his knees beside her mouth. Mama, forgive me. I was blind. I believed them. Agbonma's weak hand touched his face. It is not me you must fight, my son. It is the past. With renewed determination, Ikenna decided to reject the bottle and fight for his future. He would no longer be a prisoner of ancestral debts. His journey to redemption had just begun.